Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today we are diving into a performance benchmark comparison between two powerful backend frameworks, PHP Laravel and NodeJS AdonisJS. If you're a developer working with PHP or NodeJS, you have likely come across these frameworks, both known for their unique capabilities in creating web applications and services. But which one is faster? And how do they actually compare when we look at performance? Today I will run some tests to determine which one is faster and more efficient. For this benchmark, I deployed Laravel using the Laravel Octane package, running on Road Runner with PHP version 8.3. This setup optimizes performance and allows us to see Laravel's capabilities under high demand scenarios. For this benchmark, I deployed Adonis JS using the latest LTS Node version 22. Why did I pick these two technologies? I picked Laravel because it is the most popular PHP framework at the moment, and it is my personal favorite in PHP ecosystem. And I picked Adonis JS as its counterpart because it's highly inspired by Laravel and provides the same great development experience but in Node.js ecosystem. I conducted two separate tests to compare these technologies across different scenarios, aiming to understand how each performs in varied use cases. The first scenario is a basic test, an API road that returns a hard-coded response. The second scenario is closer to a real-world application, where an API road retrieves a random selection of 30 elements from a PostgreSQL database. These tests will highlight how each framework handles simple versus more complex data-driven tasks. Now let's take a look into the code for our test cases in both applications. For such a simple set of benchmarks, without very complex logic, I decided to go with the code written in road files. Here is the code for Laravel app, first case, and the second one. Here is the code for Adonis JS app, first case, and the second one. Now let's take a look into the database structure. I created pretty standard user tables with fields like ID, name, email, password, and some additional info columns and timestamps for records. Table has two indexes, ID as a primary key and unique index for email field. To test both applications simultaneously, I deployed them on the cloud using DigitalOcean, which offers a reasonable pricing model and all the necessary features for this setup. Each application server runs on the smallest available instance with 1 CPU and 512 MB of RAM, allowing us to see how much performance we can achieve with minimal resources. For the database server, I opted for a larger instance to ensure that its performance wouldn't become a bottleneck during testing. I used Prometheus and Grafana on my local machine to monitor and visualize the performance metrics. Let's finally begin with our first test. As we can see, the average latency, CPU load, and the memory usage is slightly higher for the PHP application, right from the start. Upon reaching 100 requests per second, the Node.js application starts to pull ahead, showing a faster increase in the requests per second metric. Also, the CPU load for PHP application starts to be significantly higher than Node.js 1, and the latency as well goes up much higher for PHP. At 700 requests per second, Node.js memory usage starts to be higher than PHP 1. But considering the significant difference in requests per second that the applications are able to handle, it is expected for me. At some point, Node.js memory usage dropped below the PHP 1, and until the end of the test it remained less than PHP. At this point, PHP average latency hits 500 milliseconds, and the P99 latency grows way beyond 1 second. At 364 requests per second, the PHP application stopped growing the amount of requests per second and hit the CPU limits. Also, the average latency is going close to the 700 milliseconds, and the P99 latency is a lot above the 1 second. At the same time, the NodeJS app handles 2130 requests per second while maintaining latency below 200 milliseconds and P99 latency well below the 500 milliseconds. As we can see, the PHP app latency goes well beyond 1 second point, and requests per second metric is not going up. So I will stop monitoring PHP app and let's monitor further only on NodeJS app to see its limits. As we can see, the NodeJS app stopped processing new requests at 2860 requests per second. The clear winner in this test is NodeJS, with 7.5 times more requests per second and 7.5 times as well less average latency, while using even a little bit less memory. Let's start with our second test. The NodeJS shows better requests per second, latency, P99 latency right from the start. And the memory usage as well is less than on PHP application. The surprising moment is that CPU usage grew higher right from the start for NodeJS application. As we can see, the PHP application already hit its limit in requests per second on this server. And the limit is 53 requests per second for this test case scenario. At around 200 requests per second, the NodeJS app also hits its limit. The clear winner in this test is NodeJS, with almost 4 times more requests per second and 3 times less average latency, while using even a little bit less memory but more CPU. It is surprising to see just how much impact the database has on our API performance, even without any noticeably slow queries. In the end, the results show a clear performance winner in both tests, Adonis JS, running on NodeJS. So, if API performance is your priority, Adonis JS or any other NodeJS framework would likely be a better choice over PHP-based options. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Let me know in the comments which framework you prefer and if there are other benchmarks you would like to see. Also feel free to check out my Patreon and other resources linked below to support the channel. Stay tuned for more insights on development and architecture. See you in the next video.